Okay, this is Packet 1, Standard A1E. It's a readiness standard. It's asking you to interpret and make decisions, predictions, and critical judgments from functional relationships. Functional relationships are comparing and talking about two different things. So we're comparing two things. We need to identify what those two things are first. That's the very first thing I want you to do. So if we look at the questions that were given to you last year, these are number 18 and 42 from your benchmark. Number 18 is a word problem, so immediately the first thing that I want to do is I want to label what it's talking about. So what is X and what is Y? So in this problem, they're asking for the population in T years. The way I know which one is X and which one is Y is because they give me an equation, and the input is always your X, and the output is always your Y. So T is your X, which is years, and P is your Y, which is population. So now that I know what I'm describing, what X and Y are, I can really answer a lot of questions about this. So the first thing I want you to do after you describe what we're talking about is look at what they give you. They give me an equation. Anytime they give me an equation, plug it in to Y equals. Get your calculator out, plug it in. And again, even though they use P and T, we changed it to X and Y. So Y equals, we plug in that equation, and I should immediately see that it's a quadratic because of a squared term. Now you can look at the graph. I personally like to look at the table because it's exact values. So now I know that the X is your years and the Y is your population, so I know what my table is describing. Answer choice F says the population of the town is increasing at a constant rate. Well, number one, I know it's quadratic, so I know it's not going at a constant rate. Number two, I should see that my Y values are not changing at a constant value. It's always different every time. So now I go to G. The population of the town will reach 10,000 people. That's what Y is representing, between 11 and 12 years. Since I know what X is, which is years, I can now look at my X value on my table where X is 11 and 12. And when I do that, my Y is at least 10,000. And so that one I know is correct. And I can do the same for H and J. But I'm going to move on to number 42. Question number 42 is a little different because instead of giving you an equation, they give you a picture. They give you a table. But no difference. I always want to describe what it is they're talking about with X and Y. My X would be the number of times I use a dishwasher, and Y would be the total number of dishes washed. Always know what you're talking about. Label your X and Y. That will really help you answer the questions that follow. Now, it wants to know how many dishes are washed when I use the dishwasher 9 times. Well, if I look here, to get to 9, these are all going at intervals of 2, but to get from 8 to 9, I have to go to an interval of 1. Over here, these are going at an interval of 52, but that's whenever we're changing using the dishwasher 2 times. So how would I get to 9 instead of 10? I'd have to go halfway in between. So I have to divide that 52 by 2, which would give me 26. Now, when I add that 26 to that 208 here, I will get my answer, which is 234. So, I didn't do anything differently with both of these problems. I always labeled what I'm talking about first, X and Y, and then I used what they gave me. On number 18, they gave me an equation. Always plug equations into the calculator. On 42, they gave me a table. Always look at those values and what they were describing. Now, some other times they will give you a graph. And so if they were to give you a graph, then I would take that graph, and let's just say, and I would look and see what my X and Y axes are describing. So let me give an example. Let's say my Y axis is my height, my X axis is my time. So now I know exactly what is being described here, and then I follow along the graph and see what is actually happening. So again, I look at my intervals. If I said my time is increasing and my height is increasing here, my line would go up. As time increases and my height decreases, this line would go down. If it was at a constant line, that's my time is still increasing, but my height is staying the same. I literally read along using the words that I'm using to describe the X and Y axis, to describe my graph. So, all things being said, when you have a problem, always label your X and Y first, whether it's a graph, table, or an equation. If they give you an equation, plug it into your calculator. Look at your graph and table. If they give you a table, let's look at the intervals. And if they give you a graph, let's again look at the intervals, but reading along as you go through it. You'll do great.